To all the little ladies out there, I want to say that the most important work you will ever do is to assist in the raising of the next generation, whether it is your own children, whether it is your nieces and nephews, just being supportive of people in your community. And doesn't it sound condescending when I say that? There is truth to that. But what do we as pro-family people think about the recent controversy about women's work, what Catholics think about women's work, what NFL kickers think about women's work? And to this guy's credit, Harrison Butker obviously is what I'm talking about. To his credit, he did win a Super Bowl. So, I mean, I think we should, and the Chiefs are my team. So I think we definitely want to be biased towards getting all of our thoughts about God and his plan for our lives from Super Bowl winners. I mean, we could do worse. But since I was off last week, since I hit a wall, I've never done this. I've never canceled the podcast at the last minute in the 4 years that we've been doing this podcast. I've never done that, but it got that bad last week that I was like, I just can't. I wasn't even sick. I was sick of the grind, I guess you could say. I was sick of life. And I did not want to foist negativity on you all last week, so we did a rerun. So now I'm back. I'm back with a vengeance. I've got some extra energy, and I didn't get a chance to talk about Harrison Butker's speech next week. And I feel like this episode will be particularly valuable for those of you who are not from the Catholic ghetto, because you've heard a lot about what Catholics think about women's roles in their families and in society. And the great thing about the Catholic view of women and their roles and men and their roles is it's completely right. Look, it is. That's one of the reasons I ended up becoming Catholic from lifelong atheism, is I actually read what Catholics believe about things, and I tried living that way for a while, but when I was frankly still kind of an atheist. And I was like, hey, this works. These ideas make a lot of sense. So it is frustrating when people who maybe haven't read as deeply in theology start talking about what Catholics think about things. So we are in the perfect Gen wheelhouse right now. It combines the Catholic ghetto with not only the NFL, but the Chiefs, which are my team. And so I'm wearing red for this occasion. Actually, that was a coincidence, but I love it that this worked out. And this is really, I mean, if only we could incorporate the rap beef into this. If only Kendrick or Drake had brought up Harrison in one of their disses. I mean, then we would have, that would be the trifecta of the things that Jen wants to talk about. If that had been involved, this would be a 7-hour episode. It would like break your phone downloading this episode with all that I had to say on that. So we will talk about that. We will also talk about the fact that as of last week, I no longer have an elementary school student. Yes, my son graduated from elementary school, and then my oldest daughter graduated from high school, and I did not shed one tear, and I didn't even feel sad. So we need to have a roundtable discussion. Does Jen have some sort of key to life that could be beneficial to you all to know? Or is Jen more on the spectrum than we thought she was, that she's not crying at these major milestone events? And I swear I'm not going to cry when I drop her off at college. It's going to be a great day. I'm going to be enjoying my life. And I am honestly asking you guys if you think there's something wrong with me, that I feel zero sadness about this. So we will have a roundtable discussion on by which I mean me talking to myself as always. And me, I'll read your YouTube comments until I see one that's rude, and then I won't read YouTube comments for 3 weeks, because that's the cycle.
Don't worry, I got you guys.
Yeah, that's it. Now Caitlin reads it. Caitlin reads the comments, and she passes on the especially meaningful ones that are not rude to me. And you will want to weigh in with your thoughts on YouTube. That's jfonyoutube.com. We'll redirect you to my site. And then you can also see, I don't want any comments on this if you weren't already going to comment on it. So after I say this, if you did not notice it, don't leave a comment because you didn't notice until I said anything. Listen. Okay, well, first of all, for those of you looking on YouTube, look at my appearance. I'm wearing a red blouse. I used my really expensive Dyson dryer to dry my hair. Okay, do we notice anything? No, I look fine, right? Okay, I cut my own bangs, and it wasn't like the perfect outcome that I wanted. But you didn't notice until I said anything. So I don't want to see comments like, yeah, Jen, it does look pretty bad. No, you didn't notice that until I said anything. So go subscribe to my YouTube channel and you can see my latest beauty mishaps. And by the way, I cut my bangs on the Village Hustle Patreon. I always do like a get ready with me. And I love my Village Hustle Patreon friends who are in that group on Patreon. And I was like, I'm going to cut my bangs. And I started flipping out on the Patreon. I was like, this is not going well. I was like, guys, I got to stop this. I'm sorry. And I had to stop the recording, but we uploaded it all anyway. So that just came out this week. It's piping hot, fresh content on the Patreon. And that link is in the show notes. It's Patreon episode 42 that just came out. And when you subscribe to the Patreon, you get instant access to all the archives, like everything. So go get on the Patreon and you can watch me flipping out because I was cutting my own bangs while trying to give you some really powerful life advice. I hope I remember to tell you more about that later because honestly, it was pretty powerful. All right, I am coming to Charlotte, North Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, Birmingham, Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama, and Nashville, Tennessee. Those are all my shows that are coming up. This is new material. It's 80-90% new material, a bunch of stuff that you guys haven't seen from my new hour that I am working on. You can get your tickets. All those links are in the show notes and of course on my website and everywhere. You can just Google it. And don't forget that my new comedy special is available now. If you go to jfcomedyspecial.com, that is also in the show notes. It is a pay what you want model. You get instant access, just pay what you want. It helps me get the comedy millions rolling on in so that I can have the staff members, the 10 staff members that I really need to be able to, be the housewife that I'm supposed to be so that my husband, can have a lot of glory and I can just kind of, play a supportive role so that he can be on stages talking about how great he is and how he's all great thanks to like me. Okay, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So that's why you should do that pay what you want model. But I will also say the special is coming out on YouTube in July. So if you have just heroic amounts of patience and can wait till July, it'll be free, available to anyone on YouTube in July. I'm very excited about that. I'm really excited for it to be out there for the public. And I'm getting in the duck and cover position now. For YouTube comments are known to be little rough when it comes to comedy specials. So we will see how that goes. Welcome to the Jen Fulwiler Show. We are coming to you from Austin, Texas. I am your host, Jen. I am a best-selling author, stand-up comic, and mom of 6. I had 6 babies in 8 years. This podcast is the podcast where you learn the art of the village hustle. That's being a hot girl boss or hot boy boss who knows that love and family and community are the foundations of all true success. Caitlin White is our lovely producer. We publish new episodes every single Wednesday morning. Last week was a rerun because I couldn't deal with life, but there was an episode. There was an episode. You can get premium content on Patreon. And if you would like to work with Caitlin, she is very quickly becoming a really top video editor. She is doing some pretty incredible work in that department. So you can find the link to how to work with her in the show notes. Keep your Apple podcast reviews coming. I am much less likely to flake on the podcast when I get some nice reviews in. All right. Let me just say a quick tangent before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. Yeah. Yes. Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, I see. Yes. Correct. That is we had our best men design that special sound effect for when we are doing tangents. And that, by the way, when you order Maternal Instinct, my comedy special, and do the pay what you want thing, see, that helps us afford sound effects. I'm telling you, you'll know that I'm rich when we have real sound effects.
Anything but jingle bells.
Yeah, you'll know that. Okay, Caitlin, if you need to turn the AC down, I'm going to be rambling and not calling for audio for a minute. All so right. If you need to run, now would be a good time. So I was grocery shopping the other day. This is so funny. Caitlin's crawling under the camera. Okay. I was grocery shopping the other day, as in future episodes, we will talk about my continued health and weight loss quest, the never ending series of failures that has been, and how perhaps another sign that I have undiagnosed mental illness is that I remain undaunted. I'm like, look, just because every single effort I have made to stop being a sugar addict and get healthy and lose weight has not only failed, but has garnered the exact opposite effect of what I wanted. And just because that has happened, basically every week for more than a year, that is no reason for me to despair that like this isn't going to happen. So anyway, we'll talk about that in another episode. So I was grocery shopping, and they were playing, a lot of businesses do this where they put on a playlist that is from one time period, right? We've all heard this. Oh. Okay. You've heard that, right?
Yeah,
have you not noticed
this? It just didn't click until now.
Yeah. So I would like to propose, I would like to propose a law that makes it illegal for businesses to play songs that are all from one time period, because some of us do not have good memories from that particular time period. Ooh. And every song is a new traumatic memory that comes. And I'm just like trying to get my quinoa at the grocery store. And now I've got to like have all these bad memories flooding back. And there are probably other people in the store who were like, it was this exact Ace of Base song that was playing when Papa lost his arm in the shredder. And if it weren't for that one Hootie and the Blowfish album, as after the men came and took the farm in foreclosure, I don't think I could have gotten through it without Hootie. And then your grocery store is playing all of these songs from this same time period, and it's horrible. I guess other people don't connect memories as strongly to songs as I do, but I am like, I hear that my grocery store is doing this. So I have noticed that grocery stores always play playlists from about 20 years ago. My theory on this, and this actually miraculously relates to the main topic. My theory on this is that everyone knows that among consumers, the consumers you want are people in their 40s. They have the most buying power. They tend to have a lot of money. They're more active, blah, blah, blah. Everybody wants consumers, especially women in their 40s. Women in their 40s, every advertiser knows is like prime target. And because most people romanticize the past and their glory years, which is typically people think of their glory years as being kind of mid-high school to right after college. So typically that's about 20 or so years in the past. That is my theory of why grocery stores and other establishments very often play playlists that are from about 20 years in the past, because they want people in their 40s to be reminded of their glory days. So like, yeah, I still got it. I'm going to buy, let's live it up. Like I'm incredible, just like I was when I was a quarterback in high school, that is my theory. Cause I remember I've been shopping at the same grocery store for 20 years. We started shopping at this one grocery store 20 years ago. And I remember that they played songs from the 70s back then, and now it's 20 years later and they're playing songs from like late 90s, early 2000s. So businesses have got to stop doing this, because for those of us who didn't have a great run, who don't think of like the glory years. Oh, everything was great in the bygone times. Like, no. Oh yeah. This is the song. You know what? This is my friend's favorite song. The one who was always like, Jen, I'm so loyal. And then she completely screwed me over. And then the time that like the cops showed up at that one party and I got in so much trouble. Like, yeah, I remember BC Boys, Check Your Head. That was the album that was playing. Guys, you can't do that. It's very distressing to those of us who strongly associate songs with memories. So that actually relates to the fact that I have yet to shed a tear with all of these kids hitting milestones. So you guys know my oldest, we dropped him off at college last year. So last August, we dropped him off at college. May I brag for 1 second?
Oh, absolutely. Totally braggable.
He's in the engineering program at Texas A&M, which is notoriously difficult. It's a very difficult program. And he got a 4.0. I mean, taking like top level, super crazy math, like chemistry, physics, all these engineering. He got a 4.0. I'm so thrilled for him. I'm very, very, very proud of him. So okay, so then he's my oldest. Second oldest is a girl, my oldest daughter, and so she just graduated from high school. That was another reason that I could not do the podcast last week. Joe had a thing that took him out of town for a few days leading up to it. And my mom, who's a huge help to me, also happened to be out of town. So I was in single parent mode with all of these like graduation prep and things like that. So that's one of the reasons I couldn't do the podcast. I was drowning. And so I had a lot of fun at my daughter's graduation. It was so great to see her walk across the stage, and it was a lot of fun. And it's just not in my paradigm to be sad. And I think maybe part of it is because I do the opposite that most people do. Most people romanticize the past. They remember the positive things about the past, and they don't see the positive things about the here and now and about the future. And I think I have just seen enough gratitude memes on Instagram that they finally got through to me, because I do very clearly remember the negative things about the past. I saw people speaking of, remembering like the 90s or whatever, like, oh, those were the great times. I wish we could go back to those times. Guys, we didn't have Google Maps. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have TikTok. Like, remember when you'd be getting lost meeting someone and there was no way to get in touch with them to tell you that you were running late, and then you'd have to stop and talk to some rando at a gas station to get directions? Guys, there is nothing to romanticize about the past. Like, it was all difficult. It's like life just keeps getting better. And I think that is universally true for most people, if you're willing to see it. And maybe it's because, see, guys, when my children were little, I blogged. And what that means is that I have a record of how crushingly difficult life was back then. So I do not romanticize those years. And if I start romanticizing those years, I look up the entry about how I had 2 people vomit on me, someone threw a screaming meltdown, another kid punched the TV, and I had only gotten 3 hours of interrupted sleep. And I read that and I'm like, oh, I think life is better now. I think I don't romanticize those years anymore. Look, little kids they're so cute. I mean, it makes my heart almost explode when I watch videos of my little kids. They're so adorable, and the funny little things they say are so cute. And so I see the tendency to romanticize those years. I mean, it's so cute. It's so adorable. But I mean, do you guys remember not getting sleep, not being able to sleep through the night? Do you remember not being able to have an uninterrupted thought? Do you remember having to get everyone dressed? And it was like getting little kids dressed is like getting an octopus on meth dressed. It's hard. And that's just like 1 out of 1,000 things that you have to do with a little kid in a day. And if you have more than one little kid, Your whole life is like you're surrounded by octopi on meth. I mean, that's what it feels like. And so I don't know why women who have kids my age are romanticizing the past. Like, do you forget how hard it was? Do you forget how hard it was?
I blacked out throughout all that. So
yeah.
Then I go back and watch the videos, and it's like, oh, cute.
You guys don't even know who you're hearing from. Caitlin, can I say what your job was?
Yeah.
Caitlin was a corrections officer during that time. So she was dealing with craziness at the freaking jail. And then having, you had 4 kids in how many years?
I haven't put it together.
In close, yeah.
Close to session.
See, okay. Yeah, now you see a real difference in Caitlin's personality and mine. So Caitlin is like, she's a real person without mental illness. So Caitlin does things like, if someone's like, hey, does anybody want to go to the lake? Caitlin's probably like, oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. When? I react to that statement like I am being physically assaulted. I'm like, why would you do that to me? It sounds like there's so many variables that we have to figure out here. Like this, I mean, why do you hate me that you would say those words to me? So Caitlin is like that. And so she doesn't know what the span was of how many kids she had in how many years. See, because it was so hard for me and I'm like a Rain Man type person, I use data to help me complain. I think that's why I like numbers and spreadsheets so much, because it helps me quantify my suffering for other people to understand. One time when my kids were little, I got out a spreadsheet and I noted every time, the timestamp of every time I got interrupted with little kid craziness, and I sent it to my husband.
That's amazing.
And I was like, and you know what? The average was, I'll never forget this. It was 42.7 seconds. Wow. 42.7 seconds. Every 42.7 seconds on average, when it wasn't nap time, I was interrupted. And so, see, I think that's how we can convince young people to take math more seriously. It's like you can quantify your suffering and help people pity you and help people understand how hard your life is. So I am very clear on the fact that I had 6 babies in 8 years because it was crushingly difficult for me. I could have never had a job during that time. I mean, I was writing my book, but if I had lived one day in Caitlin's life, I would have actually died, like having to have a job in addition to having all these little kids. So, I mean, Caitlin's the real girl boss on this podcast. She is the real girl boss. So, okay. Now, I am open. I'm open to the idea that there is something wrong with me. And that's why I don't get upset about my kids leaving the house and like going off to college. The other thing is that it could help that my kids are only 3 hours away, a 3-hour drive. So I admit maybe that helps. It could also help that I have other kids coming down the line. If these 2 were my only 2 kids, I don't know, maybe I'd feel differently about them going off to college. So I am open to the fact that maybe it is because I am indeed on the spectrum that I don't feel sad about kids going off to college. But I do think that there are elements of my worldview that help make this process easier. And I will share what they are in case it is helpful to any of you, especially for those of you who have younger children. Listen to this just in case I'm not crazy. And some of the ways I view the world have helped me not be super depressed about my kids leaving. So one of them is that the air we have breathed in this family from day one is the idea that family is all that really matters. And this relates to the main topic, the Harrison Butker speech. But it's my kids get so sick of hearing it, but just all day, every day, I comment on things in the media. Like, can you believe that person would say that like career is so important? Everything is like, it's family, 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 family. It's all that matters. Now, we also believe that there's something great about achieving excellence. So we do well academically as a family. My kid who's in college obviously did pretty well. So we believe in excellence in other areas. We believe in finding your blue flame and using it. And if that involves having a career or not, or whatever, having hobbies, that these are parts of a rich, wonderful life. So family is the foundation. It's that bottom layer of the pyramid that everything else rests on. And then you do life with your family. You talk about career stuff with your family. Your hobby, your blue flame, like the way, that thing that is a way that you give back to the world that makes you alive. You do that with your family. You're doing life with your family. So because of that, I am confident that I have done the best I can to maximize my odds of my kids prioritizing staying near one another and near us, so that we regularly see each other in person, and prioritizing marriage, family, having kids, and not waiting too long to do that. And again, I want to emphasize there's no pressure on them. We don't believe there's anything wrong if someone doesn't get married at all or at a young age or whatever. We're just saying it's a wonderful blessing if that ends up working out for you. It's the greatest gift you'll ever get is a family and children. So just look out for those opportunities. And it's so clear to my kids that is the worldview, and they agree with it. We talk about it all the time, that they'll see something on TikTok, like a woman saying, kids are terrible and she doesn't want to be around kids. And they'll say like, wow, that's so sad. Why would anybody think that way? Both of my sons would love to have big families, and, they want to have cool careers. So do my girls, but they also want to have great families. So all that is to say, that doesn't guarantee this will work out, of course. And it's fine if it doesn't, but I feel like we've maximized the odds that there will be some closeness with our family. And so I don't feel like I'm never going to see these kids again. It could work out that way. I mean, I don't know, maybe they'll be like, I hear that everything's better in Denmark because the studies always talk about how the Danes just have everything all figured out. So I'm moving to Denmark. I mean, yes, one of my kids could absolutely do that. But I feel like I've done everything I can to facilitate lifelong closeness. That was really my number one priority for all the years raising my kids. And so I've done everything I can in that. I left it all on the field, as they say. I left it all on the field for fostering in my kids a worldview of being close, hopefully physically, like living in geographic proximity to your family for life. And so the other thing is, because that's really a village setup, is when you have a village setup, so you're surrounded by family or lifelong community, you're kind of around all seasons of life all the time. And some of these big Catholic families I know, it's like, so let's say the parents are now in their 50s or 60s. So they've got their youngest kid heading off to college, but they're kind of not empty nesters because now their oldest kids are having kids and need their help. Their oldest kids are down in the trenches with little kids and how hard it is. So they're dropping off the grandkids. And so these people they're still part of that cycle of life. They're still going to kindergarten finger painting class. It's just with their grandkids now. And that's one of the things that's so beautiful about a village setup. And again, even if you're not married, it's your nieces, your nephews, your cousins have kids, or just you're really close with people in your parish and you're helping them out with their kids. You're always part of this circle of life. And so, you miss the fact that your one kid who's a sophomore in college or whatever is no longer excited about Minnie Mouse. But in a village setup, it's like, well, but your niece who lives 2 miles away is really excited about Minnie Mouse and you see her all the time. And so, and since Joe, my husband, and I do not have siblings, I will never experience that as an aunt. He'll never be an uncle. I'll never be an aunt, and my kids will never have cousins. And so I think that's one of the reasons I was just aggro about the closeness of family, because we don't have, my kids will have zero extended family, zero. So we're trying to create our own little village here, and there's a fair chance that in the next few years I could become a grandmother. Isn't that crazy? Grandma Jen. Yeah. Grandma Jen's drunk again. Like, why is she at the club? Like, but I mean, if my kids get married young, I mean, if they get married young and have kids young, I mean, anything's possible. So, so you see, I'm already kind of thinking that direction. So I sort of don't have time to be sad about like, well, they're not like a baby anymore. I'm like, I need to enjoy this while it lasts, because like my kids might get married and we might be back in babyland, before we know it. So, so that has psychologically helped me quite a bit to just feel like I've done everything I can to be part of that circle of life. And I think the other thing that makes moms cry is it is a little bit breathtaking when there's the closing of the book, so to speak. And that did hit me when my first kid went off to college. And for those of you who don't, whose kids are younger, so this is a moment that you will feel when your first kid graduates high school. It's like, so that childhood is over. It's done. The book is closed and there are no do-overs. And that's okay. That's a gut check moment. It's that no do-overs feeling, like my oldest two kids, like we never took them to Disney. And I mean, I can take them to Disney now, but it's not the same as, taking little kids. And that, I will say, that is the one thing that kind of hit me, that closing of the book, and you don't get do-overs. And that is why my advice to those of you with young kids is, just take time every few months to give yourself a freaking break. Go to a hotel alone if you need to, and just evaluate, how is life going? Are there any dreams for my kids or for our family that we would like to do? And see, I think this is where moms who follow the misguided societal ideas about what a good mom looks like end up with a lot of stress and regret as their kids get older. Because here's what happens. Our stupid society conflates having a passion for particular types of domestic work, cooking, organizing, things like that our stupid society thinks that is the only valid love language for how you love your kids. And so it discourages, like for mom who are family focused, it discourages them from doing things like getting household help, getting a housekeeper once a week, once every other week, getting even pre-made meals, even a personal chef if you have the means, because our society says there's only one way to love your children, and that is by doing domestic work. If you are not cosplaying being the downstairs help on Downton Abbey, you are not a real mom. That's what society says. When the reality is there are tons of different love languages, many of which don't involve domestic work, that are completely valid ways to love your children and your family. But our society just misses that. So what often happens is moms think they are doing the right thing by completely running in the red zone. They don't realize that they're trying to do the work of a whole village by themselves. They don't realize that no women in human history before about 60, 70 years ago ever did all this on their own. And so they run in the red zone all the time because they think that's the valid way to love their families. And they're maxed out. They think that's what makes them a good mom. And one day they wake up and youngest kid's gone. They're gone. They're off to college or whatever they're doing after high school. You're at your kid's high school graduation. And if you ran in the red zone the whole time and never had a chance to step back and evaluate, what are our goals as a family? Where are we going? You might end up with some regrets because, well, let me put it this way. When you make time for yourself to just decompress and let your thoughts flow as you want and have a little bit of uninterrupted time, you are less likely to end up with regrets when your kids graduate from high school and go on, because you will look back and say, you know what, I actually lived pretty intentionally. And so, yeah, there's tons of stuff we didn't do that would have been cool to do, but we also did some pretty cool stuff. Like, I feel pretty good about how we were living. I feel pretty good about the level of intentionality that we lived with. And I will say, and I got so much criticism of this from the blog crazies, but I was always ruthlessly unapologetic about the fact that I needed regular time multiple times per week to just be by myself and letting myself relax. Now, for normal people like Caitlin, maybe they would want to go out with friends or whatever, but I'm super introverted. But basically just not being the hands-on person in charge of your kids. It doesn't have to be locking yourself in a silent room with a glowing screen, which is my love language. It's whatever recharges your batteries. And I had people telling me that I'm not a good mother, and if I were really dedicated to my family, I wouldn't need that quiet time. I wouldn't need to do that multiple times per week, because it took a lot of sacrifices. I mean, I worked it out with my husband. He would help me get free time on Saturdays, and then we would have some neighborhood girls babysit. And look, some of them were not the best babysitters, okay? Like, it was a little touch and go, and I would need to stay in the house and kind of have one ear on the situation. But I mean, this was when our bank account was regularly overdrawn. I was still paying for high school kids to come give me a break, because that is how highly my husband and I valued me getting regular time per week to think. I was told by a lot of crazies with anonymous blog accounts that I was not fully checked into my family because I so often took that time for myself. So now that it's all over and we can look back and see that everyone's thriving and happy with their choices, who was right and who was wrong, blog crazies? Listen, I if I had those people's information, I would show up at their house and I'd be like, hey, you were user 1386241 in 2012 when you commented on my blog, and I just wanted you to know you were wrong. And I flew all the way out here to Juneau, Alaska from Austin to tell you that. And I'm confident, that I am doing this. Man, that really got under my skin, because I didn't know. I'm an only child. I didn't come from big family culture. I didn't come from Catholic culture. I was an only child atheist. So these people really got in my head because I didn't know. And I'm so glad I didn't listen to them, because I think that is actually probably the biggest key for why I don't feel weepy about the closing of the book on my children's childhood. Because I unapologetically made time for myself to get my mental stuff together multiple times per week, that allowed me to live fairly intentionally and take time to say, okay, we haven't taken a family vacation in forever and we have no money, but is there some way, you know what, could we do, as much as I hate camping, could we do something like that just to get the kids out? It's only when you have a little bit of free time that you realize things like that. Oh, you know what? I don't think I want my kids' whole childhood to pass without us ever doing a vacation. So is there some way that we could squeeze this into the budget, or maybe start saving up money now for next year or something like that? But when you live in the constant red zone because you are listening to nonsense ideas about what it looks like when a woman loves her family, your kid's whole childhood is going to pass in a blur. You won't be able to live intentionally. And then you are going to be sobbing your eyes out in the car after you drop your kids at their dorm when they go to college. Whereas you make that time for yourself. It's the best thing that you can do for your family, because then you'll live intentionally. And then when you drop your kids off, you'll be like, yeah, I feel great about that. I feel great about what we did. I'd give myself a gold star. I'm writing my performance eval as a parent to this kid. And, was it a little touch and go for a few years there? Did I feel like this whole family is falling apart multiple times? Yes. But because I made regular time for myself to think and to be intentional, I actually feel pretty good about how this whole experiment of me being a parent went. And the stuff that didn't get done, that was a fairly intentional choice on my part. And so I actually have total peace with it. And then when you're in that habit of living intentionally, you also have goals for like, all right, let's do something really cool at Thanksgiving when the kids come home. Let's make it extra fun because they'll be coming home from college, you know? It's giving yourself time to be intentional is the recipe for an incredible life. Okay, let's get, now this actually very much relates to the main topic. And before I get to that, I want to say again, if you only listen to one episode of my Village Hustle Patreon, that's the higher level one, which when you join that, you also get access to the lower level one as well. But it's a higher level Patreon, and you get instant access when you join. And I know some of you can't listen to every single episode. If you only listen to one, make it this one that just came out, episode 42, because it's, well, first of all, I was cutting my own bangs. And again, you guys didn't notice anything until I said anything. So hush in the YouTube comments. Yeah. Caitlin will delete. Anyone who's like, no, I did notice, Jen. I thought they looked terrible. No,
you didn't.
delete. Okay, so yes, I was cutting my own bangs, but I was talking about something really interesting about how often blocked emotions lead to fatigue. And those of us living village lifestyles, those of us living a life that is a little overwhelming because we have a lot of people whose emotions we are trying to take care of. It's like if you have any kind of system, a factory, anything like that, which is trying to put a million different inputs through the system. It's like a race car. You know, Formula One race cars need to be tuned up way more often than my Honda minivan because they have just so many things going on in them at a very rapid rate. Well, those of you living village lives, same with you. And what I've realized is so much fatigue that in the past, like I thought I was ill or something like that. Guys, it was seriously, it was blocked emotions. It really was. But it felt like very, very real physical fatigue. So anyway, I was talking about that on the Village Hustle Patreon. That is episode 42. You get instant access to that as well as all the archives when you join. And that link is in the show notes. For those of you who are already members, if you only have time to listen to one in the next month or so, make it that one. It's called, I forget, what's it called? Well, I forget what it's called, but it's episode 42. Okay. Harrison Butker, he's a kicker. He's a kicker, right? Yes. Oh yeah, he was, okay. Yep. He was Caitlin's kicker in her fantasy football team, which made it to the playoffs. Congratulations again. My team, very close, but this coming year is our year. I feel it. The Mermaids are on the move for this fall football season. Okay, so Harrison Butker is Catholic. He is from the Catholic ghetto. And I feel like I can do the world a service to translate Catholic ghetto to English. I am able to do this. And I think I can do this as a service. And I would have talked about it last week, but I was off last week because I was busy being a housewife. And it also, he's in the news again because he just doubled down on his comments this week. So good time to talk about it. We have an audio clip of him. So this was a commencement speech. Was it a Benedictine? I forget which college. He was at a Catholic college, great Catholic college. So he gave the commencement speech. That is a good choice. He's Catholic, Super Bowl winner. Okay. So this is a college commencement speech, and you might have thought like he could kind of talk to the guys, and maybe he did. I didn't actually listen to the whole speech, but he wanted to say a few words to the ladies, and so we will listen to what he said, and then I will translate Catholic ghetto to English. Let's take a listen.
I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross this stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
Sorry, I'm trying not to laugh. Okay. Okay, it's just like, okay, you know what I would say? I would say, what do you think is more important, a homemaker or Super Bowl winner? Like, what do you, it's just funny that he's like, one of the most important titles of all, homemaker. Well, then, if you really believe that, why aren't you doing it, Harrison? Your wife could work and you could stay home. Or are you enjoying using your blue flame in a constructive way to add value to the world through your unique gifts and talents? Listen, let's look at a couple things. First of all, let's never lose sight of the fact that Harrison Butker is a kicker. I think that my Roman Empire, that, you know, that thing that you think about all the time that really preoccupies you, is being a kicker in football. Because for those of you who don't follow football, it is hard to overstate what a high pressure job that is. What a thankless job that is. If you do the basics of your job and you kick the field goal, which will give you 3 points, or an extra point after a touchdown, which gives you 1 point, then people are just like, yeah, good, that's what you were supposed to do. But if you miss at a critical moment when your team could have won by 1 point if you'd made the field goal, everyone hates you. And, you know, and they forget about the fact that the quarterback threw a lot of interceptions and whatever. Everyone forgets about all of your teammates' mistakes, and they only focus on the kicker who didn't make the field goal. It is probably the most stressful part of being an NFL fan for me is watching kickers. Well, or college football too. And I've said too, I couldn't be the mother of a kicker. I mean, I would have to roll into the football games with an IV stand and tubes running out of it, like hooked up to my arm. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, Jen, are you sick? Like, no, it's Valium because my son's the kicker and I can't handle the stress. And as someone who is very interested in mindset, I have always been very interested in the psychology of being a kicker, because it is the ultimate job. I would say almost of any other job in the world, other than maybe being a brain surgeon, where you can't get psyched out, meaning you can't go into your head and start thinking and analyzing. Because seriously, guys, I want you to imagine this. I'm serious. So you are in a stadium that is filled with 100,000 screaming people. There is so much on the line. Like whether or not your team goes to the playoffs, like all of these people are out here, they're screaming. If you make this field goal, your team will win by 1 point and the game is over. Otherwise, your team will lose and everyone goes home. And you walk out on that field and you have one shot to get that really weird shaped ball, this oblong shaped ball, through those little goalposts. Do you understand what an ice cold mind you have to have? Do you understand how much you cannot have a predisposition towards overthinking? I mean, you guys know me really well from this podcast. Can you imagine me being a kicker? I would be catastrophizing. I'd be thinking about like, well, what do people think of me? You know, last time I missed a kick, like, and nobody was really supportive, and like that wasn't really my fault. I mean, I'd be the worst kicker because I'd psych myself out every time. So I would say maybe next time we invite kickers to give speeches, we should ask, like, are you going to go into any kind of socio-political or theological statements? And if so, could we kind of set you up with like a speechwriter to sort of help you? Because I think kickers are highly intelligent, but they are not people who like live in their heads and analyze things a lot. They can't be, or else they would not be good at their job. And so I think I am guessing that Harrison is not a person who has spent a whole lot of time ruminating very, very deeply on Catholic theology, because what he said is actually not accurate Catholic theology, but we're going to give him a pass because he's an athlete, in particular, a kicker. I interviewed a lot of athletes when I was on SiriusXM, and they really stood out to me, like pretty strongly. They stood out to me as not being all up in their heads. And I saw why people sometimes erroneously believe that that athletes are dumb. I didn't find them to be dumb at all, but they are people of few words. They are all about action and not words, so I would be interviewing an athlete, and like, I'm making this up, but it would be something like, your mother overcame 4 different cancer diagnoses as a single mother, and then became a nuclear physicist and attorney general of your state. And how did what she went through motivate you in your sports journey? And they'd be like, it was inspirational. And I that's not an exaggeration. I mean, I would bring up some very complicated, crazy situation, and they'd be like, yes, that was hard. Period, end of sentence. So athletes are not super analytical people. And so, which again, I that doesn't correlate with lack of intelligence. It's lack of overthinking, frankly. And let's face it, if you've ever known, theologians, philosophers, boy, are they all up in their heads all the time. You kind of have to be. You have to really immerse yourself in lots of ideas, and how does this truth undergird this truth in a way that is logical and makes sense. And you can't have that kind of wiring and be a successful athlete. So that's why, if I had a university and we wanted to have an accomplished athlete as a commencement speaker, I might say, we'll just get you a speechwriter. Like, don't even worry about it. And then when they hand in their draft of the speech, we could be like, okay, good first draft. I like the idea behind the kind words about your wife. Lovely. But let's just change a couple things here. So my guess is that I think Harrison was well-meaning. As someone who speaks Catholic ghetto, I know what he meant to say. But the words that actually came out of his mouth are not what Catholics think. And as both a sports fan and the queen of the Catholic ghetto, self-proclaimed, I am. It is my duty to explain to those of you who are not part of the Catholic ghetto where we went wrong in this famous speech. And even if you don't care about the Catholic worldview, I think you should care, because I find it to be accurate. I think that the Catholic worldview explains natural law in a way that is universally true. It's one of the reasons I converted. I was like, yeah, it's kind of like describing gravity. I find this to be accurate, what this religion is saying about like men and women and the meaning of life and all that. So even if you're an atheist, I think that just get in on all of our ideas, because they're really good. Okay, so let's see. Now I have the text of Harrison's speech here, so we will read from it here. Okay, he says, for the ladies today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all that you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I'm with him so far. I want to speak directly to you, the ladies, briefly, because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. Yes. Oh, I mean, yes, I've said so many times, women are the battlefield. Yes. Every stupid idea in our culture hurts women. When it comes to like morality, sexuality, the meaning of life, women always pay the price for our stupid secular society's horrible ideas. So if I were there, I'd be like nudging people like, man, this guy, I like this. I'm with this man. So he says, how many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage thinking about all the promotions and titles that you are going to get in your career. Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into the world. See, now here's where the speech, it just falls off a cliff. Like we were fine until like 2 sentences ago. Here is what is responsible for the aforementioned cliff falling off here. One is that marriage is not something that you can perfectly control. There are plenty of people who would love to be married and raise children, and it doesn't work out for them. And so there's something that strikes me almost as a little bit disrespectful to God to say, oh, I'm sitting here, because what he says is, I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into the world. Have you ever met Mexican or Italian Catholic grandmothers that they would be crossing themselves and like asking for God's forgiveness at that statement? You never presume to know. I mean, my Mexican friend, they're like, I'm going to the store to get milk. I will be back in 15 minutes. Si Dios quiere. If God wants, if God wills. You would never presume that you know your future and that you know what blessings are in store for you. What if you get married? It's a good Catholic marriage. You guys want to have a big family and you're infertile. Of course, maybe you could adopt, have a beautiful family that way. But what if adoption doesn't work out for you? I mean, it's so American. That is such an American and such a Protestant. And not all Protestant. I know I have a lot of Protestant listeners, but you know, it's not Catholic. Let me say that. To presume that you know what will happen in your life. That's why we Catholics, we're like a lot of us, there's this memento mori trend where people have the skull necklaces. It's very goth. Like you keep a skull on your desk because it's like, remember your death. And in particular, remember, you don't know when it's coming. You might be dead tomorrow. You might not live till the end of this day, let alone like, I'm just so excited that I'm going to have 4 healthy kids and be married. Oh, like any old school Catholic would get in the duck and cover position. Like God is sending down a lightning bolt because of your presumptuousness. So that's the first thing that strikes me. That is just not a traditional Catholic view to say, you guys are so excited about the marriage and the children you're having. Like, you don't know that. You can hope. You can say that that's the best blessing in the world, but you don't presume. Second thing, but here's the big thing, is I don't understand why he addressed that remark to the women. Because, and this is the salient thing for those of you who are not part of the ghetto, I found this very compelling and interesting about Catholic theology. In the Catholic worldview, for married people, their primary vocation is to the married life. And what I liked and it just felt right is this is true for men and for women. So, a man could be whatever, like a federal judge, a big high-powered job, the Catholic Church would say, good for you. Good for you. Like, whatever. That's great. Wonderful that you're sharing your talents with the world. That's absolutely valuable. But your primary vocation, if you're married and have kids, is as a husband and father. And just as a woman's primary vocation is her is her role as a wife and mother. And I heard a great quote. This is not my quote. I heard someone in Catholic media say it one time, and I loved it. She said, for Catholics, the concept of primary vocation, it's not what you do, it's whom you serve. Because the true old school Christian worldview is that your whole life is about love and service and deep love, not just like I volunteer at the homeless shelter as it fits into my Google Calendar, which is lovely, but it's about that deep, messy, annoying, soul-crushing service that we are all called to. And so that's why Catholics put an emphasis on finding your vocation, whether it's being a nun, being a monk, being a priest, being a wife, being a husband, or some people are like consecrated to the single life. I actually know someone who is a consecrated virgin. That is her vocation. So for her, she is, she's not married and she's not exactly a nun. She has a job, but she is called to serve in a celibate way. So she serves her community. She's very involved in her church. So that question of vocation, it's not what you do, it's whom you serve. So the Catholic worldview would say, yeah, just prioritize figuring that out, because life is all about that, serving the right group of people that you're meant to serve in the way you're meant to serve them. And you can serve other people too, but there's just that primary people that you are loving. And life is just better if it's possible to figure that out sooner in your life rather than later. So that's where Harrison's speech really goes off a cliff, because he said that to women. And in his own Catholic worldview, it's that this is binding on men too. Like it's not just for women. He goes on to say, I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and a mother. Again, why isn't he talking about himself? Why did he not say that his life also truly started when he became a husband and a father? If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. The number one rule of when we go into Catholic speak on this podcast, the number one rule is you must ask yourself the fundamental question when evaluating Catholic theology. Is this right theology, or is this heretical podcast bro nonsense? Very often it's the latter. And so we see this coming into play, that any Catholic theologian would look at that statement and say, wait, hold up, Harrison. Of course, family, children, having a beautiful family, children, it really is the highest blessing that anyone really can receive. It's beautiful. It's such a gift. But it is for you too, Harrison. So why are we just talking about your wife? And in fact, he started his speech by saying he assumes that all the women in the audience want to be wives and mothers. If that is the case, Harrison, then sounds like you should be talking to the guys. And I think it could have been a really compelling speech if Harrison Butker had said, hey, I'm an NFL kicker. I've won a Super Bowl, and the most important thing in my life is being a husband and father. My life truly started when I became a husband and father. Now, maybe he said that at another point in the speech, but if you're going to give public speeches, you need to be aware that we are in soundbite culture. So you can't just say that talking to women and then maybe later in the speech say something else. Especially if you're representing your freaking religion, you need to speak more in sound bites where we get the whole package in each statement, so that people aren't misinterpreting this. So that is the sound bite that is particularly off-putting and again inaccurate to the Catholic worldview, that the implication in this particular soundbite is strongly that a woman's life truly begins when she becomes a wife and a mother. And the other thing is that because you can't perfectly control finding these kind of relationships, we don't ever want to imply that someone's life hasn't started because they have not had kids, because they have not gotten married. Again, that's just not a Catholic worldview. And I know what he means by that, because I definitely feel like my life, I could see myself using that phrase. Like my life really started when I got married, and really when I had my kids. I know what he means by that, but we don't want to phrase it like that, because the reality is, for someone who just never meets the right person for whatever reason, they'd love to get married and have kids or whatever, or they wouldn't, or that's not going to be the plan for them. It's not our view that their life never starts. Life is all about finding those people who you were meant to serve. And if marriage and kids aren't going to be on the table for you, God is going to send you so many incredible, rich opportunities to nourish the next generation, to serve people, to find the people who need your gifts and your unique love. And so we would not say that person who never gets married, especially that woman or whatever, that her life didn't really start. Again, that was kind of a thing in Protestant American culture in the 1800s, that a woman was like an old maid if she didn't get married, like she just didn't have value. It's very American, and it's not Catholic. That's never been the way Catholics see things. We're all about like abandoning ourselves to God's will and service and all that. And God absolutely has a will for you, even if marriage didn't end up being on the table for you. So again, maybe he said it later in the speech, because I am living out my vocation as housewife. To be totally honest, I forgot to read that. Caitlin, you know what? Text me a link to the rest of this speech. It's at National Catholic Register has it. I used to write for them. I used to write for the National Catholic Register. I love those guys. Okay, now so notice that he's talking about how women are like most excited. You should be most excited about your marriage and all that. And then he goes into, here's what I get a little bit of a red flag. I hate to admit this. I think he's just misspeaking, but a little bit of a red flag going off for me at the end of this clip that we played. He says, I am on stage today and able to be the man I am. Does anyone feel like that's a red flag? That's a little like self-referential, the man I am today. That like seeing himself as being on the stage, a little bit of a red flag for me. Okay. I am on this stage today and able to be the man I am, which implies that like he thinks the man he is pretty great. Because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. Harrison, what about your vocation? Like, and let me read the rest and I'll tell you the red flag that I see here. He says, I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me. So he's established he's on a big stage. He's the man he is today. We're referencing that greatness. And he's now referencing his many talents, many, myriad even, that God has given him. But it cannot be overstated that all of my success, now we're referencing his success. So we've got him on a stage, the man he is today, his many talents, and now we are referencing his success. I'm telling you guys, I think these are red flags. Okay. All of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker. And then he goes on to say, and that's why I'm a homemaker, because it's the most important. Oh no, he didn't say that. So and that's why it rubs people the wrong way. Here's what people are seeing about the Harrison Butker speech that is correct. All throughout his speech, he is pretty impressed with the glamour of worldly success of the man he is today and his football career, but then doesn't value those same kinds of opportunities for his wife. He's holding women to different standards than he holds himself to. Whereas the Catholic worldview is that none of this worldly stuff really matters. His primary vocation is also as a husband and father, and talking about the man he is today up on this stage, which he references in his speech, is the Catholic worldview is like, nobody cares about that. All that matters is your vocation, which is the primary people who you are supposed to love and serve. And everything else is great, but it's a bonus. And this ideology applies equally to both men and women. Your primary vocation, if you're married, is as a husband and father, is as a wife and a mother. And it's great to use your talents in a secondary way to bless the world as an NFL player or as a whatever, as a lawyer, as a just knitting things for people, being a seamstress. It doesn't have to be a career. It can be a hobby. That's what the whole blue flame charism concept is about. But this applies to men and women completely equally. And what I think rubbed people the wrong way is that Harrison's pretty impressed with his own worldly success. You see a fair amount of reference to that in this speech. He's pretty impressed with his own success. And he does this thing where it's like, I get to go do this fun worldly stuff, but my wife really shouldn't. And this thing that's like really fun and fulfilling for me, my wife's role is to kind of build that up. And I don't have a similar role for her. And again, that's just not Catholic theology. Okay, I'm reading the whole text of his speech now. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. He really, I appreciate him saying politically incorrect things. I am a fan of people who say things that are unpopular, but we just want to get it right. So, and I want to say too, I don't think that Harrison falls in this category, but there is a type of Catholic public layperson. So not clergy. I've had universally incredible experiences with Catholic priests, best human being I've ever met. They are my many Catholic priest friends. So I'm talking about like people, husbands and fathers who are out there speaking as Catholics. There is a surprisingly high rate of megalomania with these people. They want fame and acclaim more than like anyone I've ever met. Being in comedy, you'd think, yeah, some big egos there. Nothing compared to the psychotic levels of egomania that I saw among certain groups of people among lay people who are like in Catholic ministry. And one of the things that the men did always focus on was they pretended like the call to vocation only applied to women. So funny story. I was at an event with some well-known male public speakers, and I had recently been tapped to take over the Sirius XM role, to have my own daily show with my name on it. Like, it sounded very glitzy. Everyone wanted that job. These men wanted that job so bad. They were like salivating. And so it had just come out that I got the job, and I was sitting at a table with them. And one of these guys said, one said, Jen, congratulations. We heard Sirius XM chose you. And I said, yeah, thanks. And this other guy, absolute psychopath, pretty well known psychopath. He leans forward and he says, well, Jennifer, obviously your primary vocation is as a wife and as a mother. And I said, yeah, well, as yours is for being a husband and a father. So how wonderful that we're all living our primary vocations. It's incredible. I love it. I know you love it. And another guy who wasn't at that event called me before I had, signed anything and it was final. He said, I heard through the grapevine that you took the job. He had really wanted this job because, people thought it was very glamorous. And he called me. His verbatim quote was that if I took this job, it would destroy me psychologically and it would destroy my family. Those were his words. He said, if you take this job, it will destroy your family. And he had certain accolades, I don't want to give away who he is, but he had a certain background that gave him some authority to act like he knew. And he said, look, it's just it is my professional opinion that this will destroy your family. And you guys are going to think I'm making this up. I almost didn't say this because I feel like people won't believe it, but he actually said to me, he said, as a woman, you are not wired to handle that kind of psychological stress that having your own radio show would bring, and you just, as the female brain, just can't process that. And so I'm just counseling you as a friend. I'm just saying as a friend that this is like your final warning. Not to do that. He just wanted the job. That's just wanted that job. Listen, I don't want to, Okay. My former boss at SiriusXM, another absolute girl boss, Liz Aiello, my favorite human being in the world, one of my favorite human beings in the world. She listens to this podcast. So Liz, I would never say that job was super easy for me and I didn't have to spend that much time preparing for it, because we wouldn't want to imply that. But of course, the exact opposite was true. That job was a joy. I loved the people I worked with. Having the show was a lot of fun. My family loved it. It was like, it provided benefits for the whole family. It was a great salary. I got to meet Liz and all my, Lino and Adam Hamway, all these great people from the channel that I'm still buds with today. It was wonderful. And I knew it would be. I was like, yeah, I like to talk. I mean, I don't think this is going to be that hard. I can have guests what, and this guy just wanted the job. And there is a strain of people who they're more obsessed with fame than anyone in Hollywood, and they're in the Christian world. And the men in this category, they do tend to kind of fixate on women, and women need to they need to just support the big men and their families, and just make sure that they're focused on their primary vocation. And they just totally skip over the fact that if you're not into podcast bro heresy, then that this is equally binding on men and on women. And for men and women both, your primary vocation, if you're married, is as a wife and a mother, as a husband and a father. And then additionally, you do things to use your talents, both of you, and you support each other in that. And it's very American, very very not Catholic, I will say that. The worldview that Harrison perhaps erroneously presented. Shall I do my own version of the speech? If they'd been like, Jen, you have to work with his speech. But look, I have my daughter's graduation cap. Okay. All right. I'm putting it on jfonyoutube.com. Let's cover up the bangs that I cut myself, which look fine. And you all thought they looked fine until I said something. Okay. Oh, wow. There's a random hair. Okay. This is good. Hey, subscribe to my YouTube channel. All right. You can see me badly putting on a graduation hat. Caitlin, should I have the bangs peek out of the cap?
It was kind of funny.
Okay. No, but we need to look hot, Caitlin.
No, you're good.
Listen,
I think that looks great. I would tuck those other ones to the
Boy,
side
these graduation hats are weird.
Yeah, they are.
See, I didn't get a graduate degree. So the last time, it's been a few years since I wore a graduation cap. Okay. Play the...
Oh, yeah, here we go.
All right. For the ladies present today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all that you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross this stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you're going to get in your career? To you, I say, you go girl, girl boss. But none of that is as good as it seems. Having a successful career is mostly having tons of people disappoint you all the time, not getting nearly as much credit as you deserve, and watching your enemies get opportunities that should have gone to you. The idea that some career is going to be your primary source of fulfillment and joy is a lie from the pits of hell, and also a recipe for insanity. The only thing that really matters in life is family. Maybe for you, if this song stops, restart it. Maybe for you, okay. Maybe for you, that would mean kids of your own. Or if marriage isn't in the cards for you, maybe it will mean being close to your nieces, nephews, or people in your community. Giving and receiving God's love with people with whom you have deep bonds is the reason we're on this earth, and seeking this should be your primary aim in life. For those of you who do get married, beware of men who buy into heretical podcast bro nonsense that prizes worldly success for the men, but not for women. The truth is that in a Catholic marriage, neither one of you should be bloviating on stages about your own many talents and successes as defined by worldly metrics. For the citizens of the Catholic ghetto, both the man and the woman have family as their primary vocation. Both the man and the woman should have their primary flow of love and energy be into their families, and then also, as a secondary pursuit, find a way to share their gifts and talents with the world outside their families, always doing it out of love and pursuit of excellence for the glory of God, and never buying into worldly concepts of quote unquote success. Thank you for my speech. Thank me for a great speech that accurately represents the Catholic worldview and is accurately saying, like, look, ladies, don't sell out your life for your career, but also men don't either. I mean, you don't want to sacrifice family on the altar of career. And some of you will find a way to have incredible careers and also have incredible family lives. But if you have to only choose one, make it family. And that is it for this fine episode. You know what? I was just saving up my energy last week. I just had to charge my batteries a little extra long. Go watch my comedy special, Maternal Instinct, jfcomedyspecial.com. Pay what you want, and then it will be out on YouTube in July. And go follow me on Instagram, Jennifer Fulwiler over there. And I will be back with you next week here on The Jen Fulwiler Show.